Hello there. I am Laura Dougal. I'm a parental return to work coach, and I'm here today with Heather Messenger from Arval UK, who is the senior HR business partner. And we've been working together since about 2023.
Mm, yeah,
And I've been supporting maternity returners at Arval. And Heather has agreed to have a conversation with me today to just talk about how that experience has been and what the benefits are, and to share how it's going. So, Heather, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself and a bit about
of
your role?
course. Yeah, so my name is Heather Messenger. I'm a senior HR business partner at Arval UK, and I have worked here for the last 2.5 years. I've worked in HR for quite a long time now, and recruitment, and I'm really passionate about enabling and supporting our people. And Arval is especially good at that. We do a lot around our people's voice, and we make a lot of our changes due to that. So yeah, I'm really passionate about what I do.
And I always get that from you as well. So, if we just sort of slip back to
Yeah.
2023, what was it? What was happening at the time before we were working
Mm.
together? What was it that you were trying to resolve, if you like, by looking at supporting your working parents or your returning parents
Yeah,
at
I
that
think
time?
I think, and it's not just Arval UK, but I think, the challenge within organisations and a pattern that I had witnessed in a lot of companies I've worked at is around that communication and the whole process of returning once you've been on maternity leave, or paternity leave, should we say. I think it's around when you go off, you're all confident, nothing's going to change. I'm going to come back and I'm going to be exactly the same as I was before. And yeah, we can do this, we can do that. And then you all of a sudden give birth to this little human who completely changes your outlook on your priorities. Your responsibilities change, your choices and needs change. And as a business, I'm not sure we were recognizing that. And we were expecting them to come back as they said they were going to. And I see that quite a lot in an HR role where, there's an expectation they'll come back exactly as they were before. And then they start asking for some flexibility. And actually, they're a bit vulnerable when they come back. There's a little bit of a wobble, perhaps. And it's a really daunting time. And as I said, at Arval, we are driven by our employee voice, and our people, culture, and benefits are what attract and retain. So we call our employees journey makers. That's our employer brand for our employees. So our journey makers. And I was hearing more and more feedback from the business around managers having a lack of understanding around what's the process when someone goes off on maternity leave. Do I keep in touch with them? I don't want to impose on their maternity leave. What do I do? And then journey makers feeling I've had no communication, nobody's been calling me. What's it like when I come back? What does that feel like? And I think, the juggle is really hard, isn't it? And lots of things have changed, and communication is key. And I think possibly the way I was feeling when I was sort of researching and looking for alternatives to support people when they come back to the workplace was the process just wasn't positive, and they weren't successfully re-immersing themselves in the business. So yeah.
I find what you're saying so interesting as well, because I worked in HR before I did this,
Yeah,
and part of my role was that managing people's return, but I hadn't had children. And then I think
right.
once you have
Yeah.
children, I think that
Yes.
was our sort of first conversation. I remember now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like once you've been through it, you
You
understand
know.
that there's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think a lot of businesses don't recognize that that is a thing, that this is a real shift.
Yeah. And I think if you haven't had children as well, how would you know? You haven't experienced it. And a lot of managerial roles are held by men. So it'll be a totally different experience. So I think, it's our role within HR and as a business to educate and inform our people managers on how best to support people when they go off on maternity leave and paternity leave, and also how the dynamics could change and what we do best to support them to return really successfully. So that's, I think, one of the reasons that we listened to some feedback. We did a lot of feedback as well around, we hold workshops and forums, and we did some surveying as well on the back of this sort of feedback that we've been getting. And we'd already made the decision to extend our current offering on the company maternity pay. So we extended that to 6 months. And then we also extended our paternity pay to 4 weeks. But I just kept thinking, there's something here we're still missing. There's still a gap. And it's great that we're giving people more time to not worry financially, with the extended maternity pay and paternity pay, and they can enjoy more family time together. But actually, the crux of the problem is when they return. And so through some of that survey, and it was interesting, we surveyed people that had been on maternity leave currently, had been on maternity 2 years previously and had returned, some that hadn't returned as well. So we got in touch with them to say, what was the reasons for not returning? And also we interviewed some men as well around paternity leave and to see what that felt for them. And I think there was lots of different things around differing experiences, but the consistent piece was a lack of communication, and often that there had been changes within their teams and this hadn't been communicated. They'd felt a bit vulnerable coming back in, forgetting who they were, forgetting that, they'd had to leave their baby. They're feeling really like their priorities are being crossed all the time and all of that sort of thing. And there was a need for flexibility and the confidence to ask for those things as well. And the other thing was progression. I've come back. I don't want to be pigeonholed. I might be working part-time, but I want to talk about progression as well and what that might look like for me. And I need a bit of flexibility, and I want the confidence to be able to have those conversations. And how can I be the best in both my worlds? And I think the reason this is such a pivotal crossroads for me is this is the time when you are struggling and you're having to make choices about my work-life balance and my home balance. Which one am I going to do? And often this is where we lose people. And I am passionate about enabling women to be able to do it all, because I think we can. I think it's tough, and we've got some tough choices to make and some tough decisions. But as an employer at Arval, we want to make that easier as well. And that's why I started looking for other ways to support women returning to work. And that's when I found your coaching and you on LinkedIn. And that's when you and I started talking and we introduced it.
Yeah. And how did you find introducing coaching at your end then? How has it been to implement this as a benefit?
Yeah, I think because I was doing a complete review of within the HR team of like our comms and everything else. So we'd built some toolkits around for hiring managers and for journey makers to enable them to have a much smoother process, and what to do in every sort of touch point that happens when somebody is off. And we were setting them up for successful conversations and how to have kit day conversations, those sorts of things, and inviting people back in. We rolled this out, your coaching, at the same time as rolling out that entire review of process and policy. We also have a parent employee resource group as well, and we set up a buddying system through them to start having conversations around the coaching and introduce it, which was really good. In fact, that would be a recommendation I would make, is have a kind of buddying system, either within your HR team or if you have employee resource groups, use them to help introduce what the coaching is, because actually lots of people haven't heard of it, Laura. And there's we had a lot of, what is this? What am I going to get from it? And a lot was, well, how much time is that going to take up? And then I explained that the coaching was specifically for them. This is just for you. It's not anything to do with directly with your job, and that we're recognizing that the transition can often, going back to work, can be quite daunting. And this was for us to support them. And the coach is purely for them. And then their ears pricked up slightly, thinking, "What? Just for me?" And they said, let's set up a chemistry call and let's see what that's like with Laura. And I haven't had one person say, "Do you know what? That's not for me. I don't want to do it." We've only had really positive feedback, as you're aware of, because I've fed that back to you as well, around like the gratification for the opportunity to have the coaching sessions. And then we also, as I shared with you, had a fantastic recommendation that we should maybe offer this out to men as well, because actually men aren't great at talking and aren't great at talking to each other. And it's an opportunity because it's actually a really big transition for them. And although we've extended our paternity leave, our paid leave, they can obviously take more time off if they wanted to 4 weeks. It's still only 4 weeks. And it's, there are problems with that as well. And it's a big transition and they're having to juggle stuff at home as well. And that's not to be not recognised. So, yeah, and obviously you're now offering that out to the males in our workplace as well, so which is great.
Yeah, many of the organisations that I'm working with are now, I think there's such a shift, isn't there, at them,
Yeah.
particularly right now, and it is being extended to dads as well, which is fantastic. And another conversation for how interesting
Yes.
those conversations
Yeah.
are as well, because I could talk about this all day.
Yes.
So,
Me too.
it's
Yeah,
like my favourite
absolutely.
topic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There's lots to talk about.
and what have you noticed then? You sort of talked about this, what was happening before your
Mm.
review and offering it out. And are you able to share sort of what differences you've noticed or what tangible changes you've noticed since offering this support?
I think for us, we're retaining our female workforce and we're setting them up to be successful when they return. Lots of our key roles within Arval, from a business perspective, are held by females. And I think if your employees feel supported, valued, and listened to, you've got engagement. And with engaged employees, you've got profitability with your customers and happy customers. So I think for us, it's been really successful in reassuring our females when they return that they are valued. They absolutely is a role for them within our business. And it's also really given them a confidence to go out and ask for what they want. And so there's much more clearer communication, I think, between the person returning and their manager. And also, we offer flexibility, we do all sorts of things. But I think anyone that's feeling vulnerable and lost isn't going to return successfully. And I think by offering the coaching, alongside some of the other key changes, obviously, that we've made as well, we've supported returners to successfully thrive and grow within Arval. And also, we are helping to support closing our gender pay gap by retaining our female workforce. And that's, and we also attract more females as well by offering these benefits. So I think, it's a win-win for us. And the feedback we have had has been amazing. People stopping me like on the staircase, in the hallway, to say, God, Laura's amazing. And honestly, I value it so much. I didn't realise how much I needed that. And it's made the whole return really, really simple for me and much smoother, and even sort of suggestions of how to tackle conversations at home around shared responsibility. And actually, I have a job and I need to go in and do that. And you have a job, but we've got a shared responsibility. So I think lots has come out of it and it's been super positive. I honestly haven't had anybody say, no, I don't want to do that. It's been received brilliantly. I'm really thrilled because when I first saw it and I was talking about it, and I went to my manager, my HR director, and said, I'd really like to introduce this. She was like, absolutely, let's give it a whirl. Let's see what we can do. And, and that, to have that, I'm so enabled to make these changes, these really positive changes. It's brilliant. So yeah, it's been really, really, yeah, it's been good.
This is obviously like music to my ears, and
Of
thank you so
course.
much for sharing. I guess what I'm hearing, what I take from what you're saying as well, is that it's not a standalone offer coaching and that will resolve all the problems. You've
Yeah.
also done lots of other work alongside it, and it's
Yeah.
part of a suite of things that you offer, which is always what I talk about with the organisations that I'm
Mm.
talking with. And I think, just touching on something you said earlier about that this coaching is just for them, it's such an important
Mm.
part, I think, in when you're offering this sort of support, that I always stress that it's completely confidential. We're not talking to your manager. I'm not feeding back on like individual conversations that I'm having. I think that you just said it so beautifully about like feeling seen and heard and valued, and
Mm.
knowing this is your space. And
Yeah.
talk about your relationship at home if that's what you want to talk about. Talk about your career if that's what you want to talk about. But
Yeah.
this space is for you and safe. So I'm so pleased, because that's really at the crux of everything I'm trying to get across all the time. So I'm so pleased that
And I
it's
think that,
landing that way.
and it's truly confidential. I mean, I've only been shared any kind of content by them. They've come to me and said, we talked about this and it was brilliant. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And there's a real feel of, I think what I really love about it is the psychological safety it brings. They feel trusted. And by doing this, it builds trust in your employees that you've got their back, that you value them, and that actually it's really important that they feel enabled to have these conversations around flexibility and what's going to work for them coming back. And we've promoted women that have come back throughout this process while they're being coached, things like that as well. I think because it gives them a confidence, and that's really, really important. Women really suffer with imposter syndrome. And I think when you go away from and you have time out of your role, that can come back with imposter syndrome, can come back with you. And this has really supported women in not having that or tackling it and making a change. So yeah, it's been hugely successful.
One final question for you.
Mm.
So when sometimes organizations will get in touch, and I tend to speak with people like you who are sort of senior HR business partner, HR manager,
Yeah.
um, and have had children. And I sort of recalling our initial
Yeah.
conversation as we're talking today. And those conversations are exactly like this, like we know it's necessary, we know it's needed, we definitely want to do this. And then they have to go and put it forward to their senior directors, to their senior
Yeah.
leadership team, and get budget to
Yeah.
put this in place. And that can be a real stumbling ground
Yeah.
sometimes. So I guess my question is two questions, it's twofold. It is,
Yes.
would you recommend this service to other organizations? And if so, what would you advise that they have in their toolkit, if you like, for those conversations where they're putting this forward to really build a strong case?
I mean, I absolutely would recommend it 100%. It's been a total game changer for us. And the feedback we've had has been really, really good. I was really lucky when I went to my HR director, as I said, we were changing our entire suite of offering of what we were doing. And there was some considerable investment in that, but there was a need to do it. I think I would always advise get your employees' voice. It's so powerful. So I think I would go out to your employees and get that evidence that it's needed before going and positioning it with whoever signs off your budget. The psychological safety of your employees feeling that they are trusted and that they are important and that they can be vulnerable. And instead of addressing that negatively, you address it positively by coaching and encouraging them to feel supported and recognised for the work and the input that they're doing, and that they definitely have a place at the table still, is so important. I think for me, it's around getting the feedback, getting the evidence, actually, maybe speaking. The other thing to do is to speak to a few people that have been through your coaching, and also to talk to some companies that are doing it and get some real feedback in the moment from those people as well. But I think it's so powerful to be able to feel vulnerable and to be coached out of that and to be able to succeed and see that your business supports you and to be an employer of choice. These are the sorts of things we need to do. We need to close that gender pay gap. We need to encourage women to come back into the workforce and to feel supported in doing their roles. And we need the balance always. So yeah, I think that's how I would pitch it if I was doing it. I mean, I was super lucky. My HR director trusted me and trusted my opinion on what we were doing. I think she knows I'm really passionate about it and that I've done a lot of research and I found the right provider for us.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing your experience. I really,
Oh,
really
a
appreciated
pleasure.
it.